What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Earning Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so today's video we are going to be talking about Marauders number 13 by Vita Ayala and Matteo Lolli. And in this video, we are going to learn about the sword, Skybreaker, a weapon inherently integral to Wakanda's history, and more importantly, how far Wakanda is willing to go to help Krakoa in their quest to save not only their home, but the rest of the world as well, and how far Storm is willing to go to save her own people and the rest of the world against Wakanda's wishes. We're going to talk about all that and more right now. But first, wash your damn hands and let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Before we get started, if you want to see more awesome comic book videos like this one, it only takes 2 clicks to become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers. Click.
Now, when we picked this book up, one thing I was reminded of is the fact that we have yet to see the last 3 issues of Black Panther. Since the pandemic began, we didn't get any of those issues because everything was on halt, everything was on hold, and now that everything's back to normal, Black Panther is one of the few books that has not resumed. So it was very interesting that this book actually focuses on Wakanda, and kind of has to because that's where Skybreaker is. However, we are going to be taking a little trip to Wakanda because Storm must find the Skybreaker, something that Kate Pryde offers to help her with, but Storm knows she must take on this task by herself. She has to. There's no other way that this goes down. And I do like that we are revisited by a lot of Storm's history. Some things I'm not going to go over because I already did a 30-something minute video talking about Storm, so we're not going to go through it here. Go watch that video if you want more musings about that. But Storm must stand before the Queen Mother, Ramonda, and Princess Shuri to get favor to try and ask them for the Skybreaker. Because at the moment, T'Challa is not there. He is apparently away. Now, originally, I thought they did this out of respect to Chadwick Boseman, but then I thought about it. This issue was already written and paneled out and everything before his passing, so likely not the case, and this actually will be something that's proven a little later on in this issue. However, he's not around, he's not present, but Storm only has 3 days to get what she wants. And even after everything that Storm tells him, she basically retells everything that we saw break down in Ten of Swords creation number 1. And oddly enough, Queen Ramonda and Shuri are more than happy to help. They are willing to open up the entirety of the Wakandan armory. Queen Ramonda is already offering all of Wakanda's armies. Shuri is already willing to create whatever weaponry Storm needs to fight this new threat. They even start offering up some of the most powerful weapons in Wakanda's armory. The Nation Maker, a spear-like weapon that apparently has struck down over 1,000 enemies. The Panther Claws, which are the traditional blades of the Black Panther, and more importantly, the King's Mercy, which was T'Chaka's very own sword, a sword which channels the wielder's own powers and abilities. But the thing is, as much as Storm appreciates all of those offerings, there is still only one blade that she must wield, and that is the Skybreaker, something that neither Shuri nor Queen Ramonda have the ability to give her, though they do say they would love nothing more than to give Storm the blade. They would love nothing more than to hand it over to her without even so much a moment's hesitation. But we gotta remember, if you are familiar with Black Panther comics, you probably already know this, but I'm gonna say this for those who are not, because there's always someone who's not reading something. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, Black Panther has a complicated history with its peoples. T'Challa is not beloved by everyone. Contrary to popular belief, I know, yes, we love Chadwick Boseman, we love the Black Panther in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies and all that good stuff. Trust me, we know. However, in the comics, it's actually a much different story. In the comics, T'Challa is more often than not at odds with his people. Even before all the intergalactic empire of Wakanda shenanigans. Prior to that, he had to deal deal with insurrection. He had to deal with insurrection not only from the Desturi, who were being power backed by Dr. Doom, but also he had to deal with insurrection from the Dora Milaje and Wakandan nationalists from Naganda, which is Killmonger's land of origin. He's had to deal with all this, and some of these things are even coming back to bite T'Challa on the ass now. But yes, he has had to deal for a long time with his own citizens not finding his decisions favorable. And that's something that Queen Ramonda is afraid is going to happen here, that if they give Storm the Skybreaker, Wakanda is going to turn on its king. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what exactly is the Skybreaker? Well, apparently this is a sword that was forged from the very first vibranium that fell from the sky all those centuries ago that made Wakanda the most powerful nation on Earth. This goes back to the little soliloquy-like statement that Polaris made. One sword with which to split the sky in twain, vibranium inlaid, a tempest contained. A wrath of heavens comes wielding a legacy. This is what that is. The original and first king of Wakanda used this blade to thwart his enemies, even seemingly controlling the thunder itself. Even showing this blade being wielded to strike down, not with blade, but with seemingly lightning and thunder itself striking down its enemies. A sword that was passed down from king to child and has long since been a mainstay in Wakandan history. The Skybreaker's abilities go even deeper because it kind of will remind you a little bit of T'Challa's vibranium suit, being able to take kinetic energy and being able to convert it into a kinetic force to a much larger kinetic blowback. It's kind of similar, only in this case, you're taking smaller amounts of energy and then converting it into exponentially larger amounts of energy. They even say that the only way that the metal can change its shape is through extreme heat, and no amount of pressure or strikes on its cold edge will cause any change. It is, for all intents and purposes, an unbreakable blade, and that no matter how much energy it channels, it will not affect the temperature of the blade, and that unless it is submerged in extreme heat, it is always lukewarm to cold to the touch. And this is largely due to the fact that this blade is literally probably the purest vibranium form. This sword is also dangerous to its wielder, hence why it has the ornate handle that it has. It's said that prolonged contact with this blade can actually damage living tissue, causing burns and even cancers. But the hilt itself and anything wrapped around the blade, even if it's just a piece of cloth, can actually stop that energy transfer. And its contact with other non-living materials can actually cause things to become strengthened, like wood becoming more resilient, which they even say that the hilt of the sword is now stronger than steel itself, and it can cause leather to become more supple and harder to tear. Now, granted, this is the first time we're ever seeing this sword ever mentioned in anything Marvel related. This sword has never been mentioned before, at least not by name, and has never really ever been talked about. So this issue, Marauders number 13, is officially a key issue. But the sword is said to be basically the voice of the heavens, and that its edge is sharper than any other blade forged by man and will never grow dull. This weapon is actually the seed that spawned forth all of Wakanda's technological advancements going forward. Everything from medicine to science to technology, everything. So you can kind of see why Shuri and Queen Ramonda don't necessarily want to give it up without T'Challa's consent. And no Storm, and I will say I don't want to spend a lot of time on this particular part because there's a lot of hemming and hawing and back and forth in this part. While I do enjoy the commentary and the dialogue between Shuri and Storm over dinner, trying to get one side to see the other side's point of view, they kind of go back and forth in circles here, with Shuri basically saying that we can't give this up, once again, because it will cause the people to turn on T'Challa, and we can't afford that right now with everything else that's going on. And Storm repeating that she needs this to save not just Krakoa, because if Krakoa falls, the rest of the world falls with it. And it's one of those situations where, honestly, I kind of felt like I understood Shuri and Queen Ramonda's point of view in this, but at the same time, I also kind of felt like, well, if the world falls, and don't get me wrong, Wakanda is a powerful nation in its own right. However, if Krakoa falls, Wakanda's not going to be that far behind it. The original four horsemen of the apocalypse are no joke. If they've already conquered magical realms, it's not unlikely that they're going to take down Wakanda as well. And that's coming from a guy who is pro Wakanda. Now, yeah, there is a very interesting commentary in the sense that Storm could potentially jeopardize her relationship with T'Challa finally getting back together, that they're finally kind of getting back to becoming king and queen again. And yeah, that is definitely something that Storm doesn't want to affect. But Storm does also remind her that Black Panther has not necessarily been returning her calls lately, and we don't know why. He is wanting to do this on his time, and they don't have time. She has 3 days. Those are 3 days that she can't waste waiting for T'Challa to finally decide that he wants to lend a hand or give his blessing for her to have something. Now, one of the parts I think where I love the kind of clap back here that Storm gives is that Shuri tries to liken what is coming to Krakoa as what Krakoa is doing to the rest of the world, and it's just not the same thing. And I'm kind of glad that Vita Ayala came in with a quick clap back for Storm, because she says we gave humanity things they would not get for decades, perhaps even centuries, cures to diseases and illnesses they would probably never find in our lifetime. And they did it not for money, but simply just to be accepted. It's not the same thing. And of course, the commentary that Shuri says that mutants have always been welcome on Wakanda and they've never really been discriminated against. Though I do kind of feel like they do kind of have a little bit of some weird stuff, some weird history with mutants, but it depends on who was writing it at the time, if we're being brutally honest. But for the most part, compared to the United States, yeah, sure, they've never discriminated against mutants. But once again, this conversation just goes in circles. But Storm decides that fine, screw all the hemming and hawing, it's easier to ask forgiveness than to ask permission. And she decides that she's going to use the knowledge that T'Challa gave her regarding the Temple of the Heart of Wakanda, and she's going to use that information, all the defenses and securities within the temple that protect its most valuable assets. She uses her powers to take out the drones that are basically monitoring the temple. She uses her own hands and feet to take down the guards, reminding people that she is more than just an Omega level mutant with electricity powers and the ability to control weather and all this other stuff. She's got hands, and I keep trying to tell people that, and people keep forgetting. But there's one thing standing in her way, and that is Princess Shuri, complete with her Panther gauntlets from the MCU. Now, this is the part I felt like was what was like this whole comic is worse. The battle between Storm and Shuri for the Skybreaker. The fact that Shuri does not want to fight Storm, that she wants her to just come quietly, they can talk this whole thing out, she can be pardoned, and none of this will ever have to be an issue. But Storm doesn't want to go for that, because Storm knows that it has to come to this. This is the only way this can end, and the only way that it should is with a fight. She is going to have to fight for what she wants. And if Shuri will not move, she will be moved. And they throw hands for a solid 2, almost 3 pages worth of combat, just throwing down, even with Storm taking away Shuri's Panther gauntlets, and Shuri reminding Storm that I used to be Black Panther too. Don't forget, I got hands. And something that I love, this is a line that I love, and God, I love this line. The fact that she says, you forget that I have worn the mantle of protector as often as inventor, a commentary on the fact that fans of the MCU Shuri tend to not know that Shuri is as badass as she is. A lot of people think, oh, she's just that plucky little inventor girl who is basically like one of those characters you see in the CW Arrowverse series, like the Flash, like your Felicity Smokes and such. You know, the plucky nerdy kid who's the comic relief and is kind of the avatar for the audience. No. Shuri is so much more than that. She is so much more than the character you saw in that Black Panther movie. She is just as good a fighter, if not better, than T'Challa. And when it comes to clashing swords, she actually disarms Storm of her sword, because once again, she's that good a fighter. The problem is that she doesn't account for something that Storm will likely do, and that is she has a blade held up to Storm, and Storm has to yield, and Storm does. She puts up a hand almost as if she's about to yield, but simply says, I'm sorry, sister, and sends an electric shock through the sword strong enough to knock Shuri on her ass and give her time to take the blade, the Skybreaker, and replace it with a fake. But the thing is, the fight between her and Shuri lasted just long enough. The system, which was already on a 30-minute reboot cycle, it's already up. And the system reboot has already locked down the temple, and Storm can't get out. She can't even use the access codes that she used to know from her time as queen, and she winds up having to blast her way out of it as Wakandan drones start coming after and trying to kill her. And she ends up destroying all of them because, once again, she has the Skybreaker. She's pretty much unstoppable. Nothing in Wakanda Wakanda can take her down. And it just so happens, as she makes her way out of the temple, who is waiting for her? T'Challa and his guard. And T'Challa essentially echoes the same things that Queen Ramonda and Princess Shuri told her earlier in the issue, that if she just would have waited, he would have given her everything that she asked for. But once again, this goes back to what she said before, that she didn't have time to wait for him to show up and decide that he wanted to help. She had been asking for his help and he had not been responding. And something that I thought was a very powerful moment is that, because a lot of times I think sometimes people forget that, they say, oh, well, Storm, she was queen of, Wakanda, she was, T'Challa's wife. And sometimes people tend to think that she plays a secondary role and all that. And she does remind T'Challa that I'm not at your beck and call. My life does not revolve around your whims. I needed this and I needed it now, and you were not here to grant it. And T'Challa knows that if she is willing to go this far, the threat must be dire, and he's willing to let her go. And even though T'Challa says that he would do anything for her, even though he says that yes, he would have given her whatever, the problem is that T'Challa could not help her with this, because this is something that, as she told Queen Ramonda, Saturnine has a game, and it is heavily tied to magic, and the rules cannot be broken. So there's nothing T'Challa could have done other than stand aside and let her do what she must do with the Skybreaker. However, we do see immediately, even though he does let her go, T'Challa gives orders to destroy the Krakoan gate. And even though he is clearing Storm of the charges of being a thief, she will not have a gate to go freely back and forth between Krakoa and Wakanda. And if she does return, it will only be if Wakanda decides to allow her. Basically saying that her Wakanda privileges are cut off, essentially. But at the end of it all, Storm has retrieved the blade, but she knows she paid a heavy price to take it. And she knows that she has damaged her trust between herself and T'Challa and the people of Wakanda. But Storm is ever stoic about it. She knows that she had to do what she had to do. This could not be done any other way. And she has now placed her sword at the summoning circle, and she now waits alongside Wolverine and Magic for the final battle to begin. This book was really cool. Once again, these are things that we haven't had a chance to discuss, because a lot of people have asked me, well, what's going to happen with Krakoa and Wakanda? What's going to happen between Black Panther and Storm now that, Krakoa is a thing? And we've now gotten a little bit more of an answer as to what is going to happen, because it seemed at first like, even though, yeah, there were some political issues between them, it seemed like Wakanda was more than willing to come to Krakoa's aid. But due to the circumstances of what Krakoa needs, they kind of got put in a tough position. Wakanda itself in a tough position that made it a lot more difficult to keep that relationship from going threadbare. And it seems like with just the one act of Storm stealing the Skybreaker, that has pretty much done it. And now we will probably see something down the road, maybe possibly of yet another crossover between the X-Men and the Black Panther side of the Marvel Comics universe. We've gotten them in the past at least twice, with Worlds Apart, and then like X-Men Black Panther Wild Kingdom. So yeah, this isn't something that's out of the realm of possibility, and I think it's something that will most likely happen again. Don't forget, we have been told by Marvel that Storm will be getting her own big major arc coming up, not just during Ten of Swords, but also in the months after Ten of Swords has come to a close. So this, I think, everything here, whether you're here for it or you're not here for it, whether you agree with Storm's actions or you disagree with them, this is essentially laying the foundation for that story arc, which will likely, very likely, include Black Panther's corner of the Marvel Comics universe. Just like many of you have been clamoring for the next big thing, the next big confrontation between Wakanda and the X-Men, a lot of you have been asking me about this. A lot of you have been asking me, when are Wakanda and Krakoa gonna come to a clash? And guess what? This is very likely the breadcrumbs, the foundation leading to this. So there you go. Now you got it. And please believe, and I know there's some people who don't like the fact that Storm and Black Panther's relationship is being put to the test as a result of this, but let's be fair. In the past, it has been this way. And of course, Storm having ties to both the X-Men and Wakanda, and her dual loyalties in that regard being called into question by not just the characters in the story, but the readers of said stories as well. Are you really surprised that Storm, or more importantly, actions taken by Storm, would be at the heart of all of this? It's kind of obvious. This makes the most sense. I will say I'm not terribly crazy about the idea that Storm and T'Challa's relationship is being put to task here, because I feel like we literally, I mean, it's only been, 4 years, but I feel like we only recently got it back, and it already kind of seems to be getting torn asunder once again, just like what we saw during the events of Avengers versus X-Men. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next there. I don't know. I actually was planning a video talking about how Storm and Black Panther got together, and now it already seems it is already going to be something that is going to become a moot point as it is. But anyways, let me know what you thought about Marauders number 13 by Vita Ayala and Matteo Lolli, and overall 10 of Swords as a whole. Wash your damn hands and sound off in the comments. So hey, you made it to the end of the video. Awesome for you. If you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I don't see how you didn't, do me a favor. Hulk smash that like button. And if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and tap that bell so you know when I post up. Also, feel free to go check out my Patreon, where if you chuck in a buck, you can get early access to most of my videos up to a week early. And if you have time, make sure you swing by nerd901.com, where you can find more of my content as well as other amazing stuff. Anyways, until next time, I love you 3000 plus ultra.